Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about Victorian period poets in the history of English literature. Okay, in the previous lecture I told you about the overview of the Victorian age. In that age you could see how the trends were being changed with the passage of time. As you could see in the Romantic era in the history of English literature, the poetry was on the top. There were too many poets in that period, and that was dominated by the poets. For example, like William Wordsworth, John Keats, Coleridge, Shelley, and many others. Fine. So here in Victorian period, basically our focus would be on the novels. Okay, I told you the reasons why on the novels. My dear students, this is your lecture number 17, and we are dealing with history of English literature. This is ComSat's virtual campus Islamabad. Okay, so I'll just give you the briefing of what we have done in the last lecture, and then we'll move forward. Okay, basically my dear students, today we'll cover three major poets in the first half of the Victorian period, and that is known as the early Victorian period. Fine. So we'll talk about Alfred Lord Tennyson, Robert Browning, and Matthew Arnold. These are the major poets. Okay, fine. So my dear student, let me give you the briefing of the Victorian period, which we have discussed in the previous class. That is because of industrial revolution and many other things, education was being promoted during that era, and everybody could read and write. So there was a trend of writing the novels plus reading the novels as well. Everybody could read at least. Fine. So that is why novels were on the top, and novels language is also very much easy to understand. Okay, so we could see over there, I told you the reasons why that is known as the Victorian period, because Queen Victoria was ruling England at that time. Fine. So that is why this period is known as the Victorian period. So we divided Victorian period into two different halves. One is the first half is known as the early Victorian period, and the other one is later Victorian period. So I told you the differences as well. Okay, so we'll talk about poets, novelists, and prose writers in both the periods separately. Okay, because the trends and the themes, you can say, and different other fashions which were going on in the first half of the Victorian period are different from the later part of the Victorian period. Okay, so my dear students, here we are talking about poets in the first half of the Victorian period. Okay, so we'll focus on these three poets here. There are many other minor poets as well, but after getting to know about three poets, my point is just to give you an idea what was basically happening in the country at that time, and what were the themes, and what were the writing styles, and what were the eminent writers of that time. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about Alfred Lord Tennyson. Okay, I just want to give you the background of this personality. Okay, he was born on August 6, 1809 at Somers Bay. Okay, and several men in his family had mental and physical problems, epilepsy, insanity, excessive drinking. Okay, Tennyson's father was abusive and violent. So my dear students, here this is the background of Tennyson, and you could see many of his family members, they were suffering from some mental kind of diseases, and for example epilepsy, insanity, and excessive drinking. So these are basically the problems his family was facing, and his father was also abusive and violent. So my dear student, what is the point of giving you this kind of background information is that when you analyze his work, so you'll have to keep in mind his background as well. So it would be shown through his writings as well. Fine. So my dear students, you just have to clarify your concept. For example, if you find any kind of expression in his poetry, so it would be very easy for you to understand what was the situation at that time, the problems which Tennyson was facing at that particular time. Okay, so these are some of the reasons, and you could see a clear reflection of all these problems in his poetry as well. Fine. Okay, Tennyson attended Trinity College, Cambridge. So basically he was a graduate from Cambridge, invited to join the Apostles and Undergraduate Club. Fine. Basically he joined this college. Okay, and this group included his lifelong friends. So when he joined that club, undergraduate club, So basically he found too many friends over there, okay, and we'll talk about his most important friendship over here as well. Most important friendship was with Arthur Hallam. He and Tennyson knew each other for only 4 years, but their intense friendship had a major influence on the poet. So basically he met this person over there, and then they knew each other for 4 years only, but you know, this person's personality, you can say, has a long lasting influence on Tennyson poetry. Fine. So my dear students, again I am telling you the point why I am telling you all these things, like for example, whenever you read his poetry, so you'll get to know about what basically was happening with him at that time. So you could see some kind of clues relevant to his friendship as well in his works. Okay, Hallam's death in 1833 when he was only 22 led to his best poetry, including the Memoriam. Fine. So this is one example of his poetry. Okay, so you could check his work Memoriam. So when his friend, you can say his best friend, died in 1833, and he was very young, he was only 22 years of age. So you could see the elements, like the elements of grief, sorrow and sadness in his poem, the way he was missing his friend in his work Memoriam. Okay, so this was his life in Cambridge. Okay, we took a start with his background from his family and then his friends. So for my dear students, the point is that again I'm coming towards the analysis of the works, like at least some core concepts must be clear in your mind. So in this way you'll be able to analyze poetry in a very good way. Okay, what is basically hidden behind the words, what is basically you know lying behind the literal words of you know poetry. So you have to keep in mind. Okay, 1830 and 1832 poems. So we have here we are going to talk about his poems during this period. Okay, in 1830 Tennyson published poem chiefly lyrical, okay, and poems 1832 and 33 were attacked by critics and obscure and affected. Okay, criticism kept Tennyson from publishing again for another 9 years. Okay, you could see like he faced a lot of problems as far as criticism is concerned. His work was considered obscure as well. Fine. So these are basically the problems. So in 1830 he published his poems, chiefly okay, lyrical poems. He published in 1830. Okay, 1842 poems. So here you can see a gap as well. Okay, so, for example, previously when we were talking about his 1830 and 1832 poems, so my dear students, here you can see like there is a gap here of 10 years. Like here we are going to talk about his poems 1842. Okay, established Tennyson career as a writer. So my dear students, here you could see like after 10 years gap because of the criticism he faced by different critics during that era. So he published his poem after 10 years. Okay, so this volume includes The Lady of Shalott, The Lotus Eater and Ulysses. Fine. So my dear students, here you can see like it was for the first time when he you know, you can say he was recognized as a good poet or a writer. Fine. So after his poem which were published in 1842. Okay, so here you could see some of the images of his poems as well. All right, in Memoriam, the one which I was telling you when his best friend died, so he wrote this poem after that. Tennyson's greatest poem. So this is you can say one of the greatest poems written by Tennyson. Okay, it was published in 1850. It represents his struggle with Hallam's death and with the new development in astronomy, biology and geology that were diminishing man's stature in the universe. So basically in this poem you could see like this is based on his you know experience. Okay, a very bitter experience of his life, that was his best friend's death and the struggle for life during his lifetime and something like that. And it is also about astronomy, biology and geology. So my dear students, here you have to keep in mind while analyzing Tennyson's poems, for example, Memoriam, like what was basically happening when he was writing the poem. Okay, first of all, his best friend's death. So you could see the theme of you can say death in Memoriam as well, and many other elements, for example, astronomy, geology, and biology as well. Okay, after publishing of this poem, Tennyson was named poet laureate. Fine. So this is you can say one of his famous poems. Okay, so after the publication of this poem, okay, so he was known as poet laureate. Fine. So my dear students, Tennyson is a very famous poet, okay, and I recommend you to read his this poem, the Memoriam. Okay, so later poetry. Tennyson's later poetry follows a narrative style, like it is in form of a story. Previously, he was following like a kind of some kind of meters in his poetry, but here later poetry in his later years, so you could see like he started following the narrative style, that is in form of storytelling. Okay, several poems dealt with national affairs. So what was basically happening at that time, so you could see the element of nationality element of patriotism as well in his later poems. By this time, Tennyson was established as the most popular poet of the Victorian period. So basically this is after the publication of Memoriam and some other works, he was given a title poet laureate, and one more thing, that he was the most popular poet of the Victorian period at that time as well. So basically he earned a lot of money after his publications. So my dear students, he bought a new home for himself where he could write in privacy, and his appearance enhanced his notoriety. So this is basically according to his experience as well, like the kind of themes he talked about. So his appearance enhanced all those themes as well. Okay, so this is all about Tennyson's, like I'm just giving you I'm telling you his poems along with the background information as well, what was basically happening behind the scene at that time. So you could read the rest of the information in your books, or you can search on internet as well. So I'm just giving you the core concepts, what was basically behind that. Okay, so Idylls of the King. So my dear students, here you could see like this is one more work that is written by Tennyson during the Victorian period, large-scale epic poem that occupied the second half of his career. So this is the later part of his career as well. So this is an epic poem. This is a very long poem in form of you can see in form of a narrative. Uses of Arthurian legend to construct a vision of the rise and fall of civilization. So basically this is again about civilization. As I told you, like most of his later age poems, those are about national issues and about patriotism as well. So here you can see like his vision of rise and fall of a civilization as well. So basically, as I told you, like first half of the Victorian period, that is full of hustle bustle, so many chaos was there. Okay, instability was there. So my dear students, here you can see like he wrote about the civilization rise and the fall of the civilization as well. Okay, Tennyson's most extensive social vision. So here you could see like Idylls of the King. In this poem, in this epic poem, you could see like the extensive social vision as well. So basically this is about the rise and the fall of the civilization, and this is about social vision. So basically these are the themes of that poem, the background information of the poem. All right, so now I'm going to tell you the themes in Tennyson's poetry. So my dear students, here you can see like what are basically the themes in his poetry. The divided self. Okay, like he divided himself into different categories. Sometimes like he had to perform other duties, so you could see like different selves in his poetry as well. Okay, so this is the division of the self. Okay, link external scenery to interior state of mind. So basically the combination of external plus interior, you can say the internal affairs of mind. So here, my dear students, you could see like he mixed up external world with his thinking. So okay, this is what, my dear students, you could see like he tried to provide a link. He tried to bridge the gaps of the external scenery to interior states of mind. Okay, the historical past. So this is basically his past, you can say, is historical. So maybe he's reminding his past. So this is also one of the themes, as you could see in Memoriam. So that's it. That is also about past, the kind of sufferings he had to face, during his best friend's death. So this is all about his past, the meteorological past as well. Okay, and Tennyson's personal past. So basically here you could see past 3 times. Okay, so one is the historical, the other one is the mythological past, and the third one is the personal past as well. So basically in first 2 parts you could see like there is an element of objectivity, and in personal this is his subjective past, the sufferings and the pains, and you can say the happiness which he had in past. So he talked about that happiness, you can see in the third one. Geological time and evolutionary history, social and political concerns. So my dear students, here you could see like this is his poetry is a combination of all the things. Okay, his personal life plus the historical past, plus that is about social and political concerns as well. This is about geology, this is about biology. So here you could see like too many elements which are mixed in his poetry. So that is why usually people say that analyzing Tennyson's poems, that is not an easy task. So you'll find his poetry difficult as well, but by keeping in view different themes, what was basically happening at that time, what are basically, you can say, the core concepts of his poetry, so the things would be very easy for you to analyze. So my dear students, you just have to keep in mind these are some of the themes, so you can come up with certain other themes, what is basically your opinion. So here I'm not asking you to limit yourself to these themes only, so you could go for other themes, what was basically happening in that society, what were Tennyson's problem by reading his biographies. So my dear students, you'll have to analyze his poetry by keeping in view different dimensions in your mind. All right. Tennyson's reputation. Okay, Tennyson was the most popular poet in England in his own day. So during the first half of the Victorian period, you could see like he was the most popular poet at that time. Alright, he was the target of mockery by his immediate successor, the Edwardian and Georgian. So basically, okay, my dear students, here you can see like that this tradition is very much common among all ages, like when somebody is getting success. So you could see like there are some opponents as well. There are certain kinds of elements of resistance as well. So here you could see like he was a target by his immediate successor, the Edwardians and the Georgians, and you could see like the kind of mockery they did on his works. Okay, today many critics consider Tennyson to be the greatest poet of the Victorian age. So my dear students, here you could see the word today. Maybe he was not acknowledged a good poet during his age because of his opponents, and there were certain elements of resistance as well. He had to face certain challenges, as I told you, like there was a 10 years gap between his publications. So my dear students, here you have to keep in mind like today he is considered as the best, you can say, poet of the Victorian age. Like the elements of the first half of the Victorian age are very much, you can say, present in his poetry. So while analyzing his poetry, you have to be clear about what was happening in England at that time, who was ruling over there, and the kind of chaos in the society, instability in the society. There were some psychological problems as well in the society. So my dear students, here you have to do the comparative study as well of the first half of the Victorian poetry in the first half of the Victorian age and poetry in the second half of the Victorian age as well. So here you'll find out the clear-cut differences between, you can say, two halves of the Victorian age. Okay, so no doubt he is a greatest poet of the Victorian age because he presented the Victorian society in a very good way. All right. Another poet during that era, his name is Robert Browning. Okay, so here you could see his date of birth as well. He was born in 1812 and he died in 1889. Okay, so my dear students, he belonged to the first half of the Victorian age again. Okay, he was born on 7th May, as I told you, 1812 in Camberwell, England. Browning had a sister named Syriana Browning. His mother, Sarah Anne Vedeman, was an accomplished pianist and a devout, Christian. His father, Robert Browning, was a bank clerk and also an artist, scholar, antiquarian, and collector of books and pictures. Browning got much of his education from his father. So basically, his father was an artist, he was a scholar as well, and he was very fond of collecting books and pictures. So basically much of his education he got from his father. Okay, he learned Latin, Greek and French by the time he was 14. So my dear students, this is a great achievement as well. Like by the age of 14 he learned Latin, Greek and French. So my dear students, here you'll see like that was very much easy for him to read Latin, Greek and French literature as well. So again, Robert Browning's poetry is also difficult to analyze, but because there would be some myths from other literatures as well. Okay, from age 14 to 16 he was educated at home. Okay, so here you could see like he learned, or you can say all these languages at home as well, and then from the age 14 to 16 he was educated at home. When he was 10, he started at the Peckham School, where he stayed for 4 years. So again you could see like for 4 years he stayed at school. At age 12 he wrote a volume of Byronic verse entitled Insondita. His parents tried to have it published but were unsuccessful. So my dear students, here you could see like maybe because of the financial problems they could not get his work published. Okay, so the information about Robert Browning that has been taken from www.poets.org. So if you want to learn about other poets, to know about other poets, so you can visit this website. Fine, so you'll find out the history of all the poets on this website. So this is basically background, or you can say the family background of Browning, and you could say like the educational background as well. Okay, so my dear students, here I am providing you the basis for analyzing Browning's works as well. Okay, like he could speak, he could understand Latin, Greek and French at that time when he was only 14 years of age. Okay, so for the very first time at the age of 12 he wrote a Byronic verse. So here my dear student, this is about Byron, about Byronic hero I told you when we were doing romantic age. Okay, so dear students, here you'll have to keep in mind all the core concepts. This would be very helpful for you when you'll analyze Robert Browning's poetry. All right. In 1828, Browning enrolled at the University of London, but soon after he left because he wanted to read and learn at his own pace. So, my dear students, for the first time you could see like he was enrolled in University of London. Okay, that was year 1828, but he left that because he wanted to read and learn at his own pace. Okay, in 1833 he anonymously published his first major work, Pauline, a fragment of a confession. For the very first time in 1830, he published his first major work. Okay. In 1840, he published Sordello, which was a failure. Okay, so my dear student, first publication which he, you can say, published anonymously without any name, without mentioning any name. So my dear students, that was a popular work which was done by Robert Browning. The other one, that is Sordello, that is not at all a famous work. It was a kind of failure. Browning also tried writing dramas, but he was failed. So these are some of the names of his dramas as well. So he could not, you can say, make his name, you know, because of dramas. Okay, he's famous for his poetry. However, his use of diction, rhythm, and symbol are regarded as his most important contribution to poetry, influencing major poets of the 20th century such as Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, and Robert Frost. So my dear students, modern poets, you could see, or the poets of the 20th century, my dear students, they were very much influenced by Robert Browning, the kind of diction he used and rhythm and symbolism in his poems. So they were influenced. So when we'll be talking about 20th century poets, okay, so you would see like the elements from Browning poetry as well over there. Okay, so like previously when we were talking about, you can say, previously when we were talking about the Romantic era, so you could see the revival of the Elizabethan age again. Okay, the themes which were very much common in the during the Elizabethan period, you could see like Shakespearean tragedies and comedies and many other dramatists who used to write during the Elizabethan period. So you could see the revival of that Elizabethan period again in the Romantic era. So my dear students, here we are dealing with the Victorian period. So later on when we'll be doing another, you can say, era in the history of English literature, you'll see the elements which are present in Robert Browning's poetry would be there in, you know, in other poets' works as well. Okay, Browning corresponded with Elizabeth Barrett in 1844 for a few months after reading her poems, and finally met her in 1845. So basically she is also a poetess, fine. So here you could see like he you know, corresponded with her, you can say, in 1844, and then right after 1 year he met her. Okay, they got married in 1846 and moved to Pisa and then to Florence, where they continued to write. So basically Elizabeth Barrett, you know, is the wife of Robert Browning. So my dear students, both of them, they got married and they moved to Pisa, and they got married in 1846, and you know, and they moved to Pisa and then to Florence, where they continued to write. So both of them, they were engaged in producing poetry. So we'll talk about her as well. In 1849 they had a son, Robert Panverdeman Barrett Browning. Okay, this was the same year Browning collected poems was published. So here you could see like the, you know, title of his publication, that is known as the Collected Poems. So in the same year when you know, they had a son in 1849, so he published his poems with the name Collected Poems, and those were published in the same year. Elizabeth inspired Robert's collection of poems, Men and Women, in 1855, which is one of his best works, but at that time was not noticed much. So my dear students, Victorian, first half of the Victorian age is known as you know, the age of chaos, the age of curiosity, age of instability. So my dear students, at that time his work was not acknowledged as such as we acknowledge him today. Okay, so the rest of the information, the detailed information, you can get from this link which is available here on this slide. Okay, my dear students, this is all about his life, like the kind of work so he produced. So my dear students, here I'm telling you side by side like the important events in his life, plus you know, important works, what was happening, but while analyzing his poems, his works, so you'll be able to keep in mind what was basically in his mind and what was happening in the society at that time. All right, Elizabeth Barrett Browning died in 1861, and Robert Browning and his son moved back to London. So previously they moved to Pisa and then to Florence as well. So now after her death, after his wife's death, so you could see like he and his son, they moved to London. Okay, in 1863 Browning published Dramatis Persona. Okay, in 1866 The Ring and the Book firmly established Browning's reputation, and from then on he was considered one of the England's greatest living poets. So my dear students, these are his two very much important works, okay, Dramatis Persona and The Ring of the Book. Okay, in 1879 to 80 he published dramatic Idylls and other works that brought him worldwide fame. So basically previously, like up till The Ring and the Book, he was known as the best poet, as a living poet, as a lively poet in England only. But with the publication of dramatic Idylls, he got you can say popularity all over the world. In 1881, the Browning Society was established in London to study his poems. So there was basically a full-fledged society that was, you can say, established in London to study his poems. So here you could see his popularity as well, like how much famous he was during his era. Alright, he was awarded with the Honours MA of, you can say, Oxford, June 1868. Honours Fellow of Balliol College, October 1868. Honours LLD of the University of Edinburgh, 1884. Honours President of 5 Associate Societies of Edinburgh in 1885. So just because of poetry, he got all these titles, and you can say all these degrees. So my dear students, here you could see how famous poet he was. Browning was a very popular poet among you can say other poets of the Victorian age. Robert Browning died on December 12, 1889 during a stay in Venice, and he was buried in Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey. Fine. So my dear students, the rest of the information, the detailed information, you could get from www.poets.org or from www.galegroup.com. Okay, so this information is also taken from the websites, but if you want to know more about him, why he got popularity, what were basically the most important themes of his poems, so you could get this information easily from these two sites. All right. Okay, this is another work you can say by Robert Browning. The name of the work is The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Okay, so this is the first stanza of The Pied Piper of Hamelin. So here, my dear students, here this is the first stanza. Okay, the first, you can say, part of his you can say work. Okay, Hamelin town in Brunswick, by famous Honver city, the river Weser deep and wide washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you never spied, but when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so. So dear students, here you could see like you could analyze this first stanza of, you can say, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Okay, so basically the elements of nature are also there, the description of the city and the kind of sufferings people had at that time, and his historical past as well is present in this stanza. Okay, so this is a picture from his publication, that is The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Okay, that is by Robert Browning. Okay, why, you know, you could see like certain elements which are there, like English people, they made a society in order to study Robert Browning, and he was a very famous poet as well, and he got too many awards, too many titles as well. So my dear students, I just want to give you an exposure to his poetry as well. So basically this is the purpose of telling you this stanza as well. Okay, so let me give you some more examples from Browning's poetry, because his poetry is very much interesting, and that is full of illusions of symbolism. Okay, so if you are familiar with his illusions, his symbolic representation of the world, and you can say like his diction, so basically it would be very easy for you to analyze 20th century poets as well, because the elements from Browning's poetry are very much present there in the 20th century as well, because they were also following the same trends. All right. A Woman's Last Wall, this is his poem. You could see like 10 stanzas are here in this poem. So I'll read this poem for you. So here you'll be able to, you can say, know about his rhyme scheme as well, the kind of stanzas he has used, or you know, by looking at the poem. All right. First stanza: let's content no more love, strive no weep, all be as before love, only sleep. Okay, so my dear students, here I'm just telling you love and weep and love and sleep. So the rhyme scheme here is A, B and A, B again, because love is there in first line and third line, and weep and sleep you could see pa sound at the end of you can say verse number 2 and 4, okay, and the long E sound as well. Okay, second stanza: what so wild as words are, I am though in debate as birds are, hawk on bow. So again you could see like if you go for the analysis of the rhyme scheme from stanzas to stanza, so here again you can see like R and R both are present in first and third line. Rhyme scheme is same here in first and third verse, and in second and fourth you could see the same rhyme scheme, the same sounds at the end of the verses. All right. The third one is: see the creatures talking while we speak, hush and hide the talking, cheek on cheek. So again the same rhyme scheme is here. So most of the time we used A, B and A, B. What so false as truth is, false to thee, where the serpent's tooth is, shun the tree. So again the rhyme scheme is A, B and A, B. So my dear students, it's totally up to you the kind of analysis you do of any kind of poem. That is or totally up to you, because you can give your subjective opinion as well while analyzing the poem. So what is basically the significance of a certain punctuation marks over here? So you will have to analyze each and everything by keeping in view the scenario I told you about his life, about the social issues which were going on during that era. So you have to keep in mind. The fifth stanza of the poem: where the apples reddens, never pry, lest we lose our Edens, Eve and I. So basically this is you can say a symbol of you know, paradise over here. The the way Adam and Eve you know, they were thrown out of the paradise. So here this is the symbolism over here. Okay, be a god and hold me with the charm, be a man and fold me with thine arm. So here again me and me in you know first and third verse, and you know charm and arm you could see in the second and the fourth line. Okay, teach me only teach love as I ought, I'll speak thy speech, love, think thy thought. So my dear students, again here you could see the rhyme scheme A, B and A, B. So this is about love, this is about you can say historical power, this is about the description of you can say the natural elements. For example, you could see in the second stanza the description of bird is also there. So that is totally up to you the kind of analysis you are doing of any kind of poem by keeping in view the historical events, the social events which were going on at that time, and the mental state of the poet as well, the kind of background he had. All right, so by keeping in view everything you'll have to analyze the poems. Okay, meet if thou require it, both demands, laying flesh and spirit in thy hands. So again the rhyme scheme here is A, B and A, B. Okay, second last stanza: that shall be tomorrow, no tonight, I must bury sorrow out of sight. So my dear students, rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. All right, so here you could see like the separation of the words as well. You could see like tomorrow, so you could see a punctuation sign over here like in to and then morrow. So here basically, so my dear students, here you could see like the kind of pronunciation we are doing here, and the kind of separation of the words. So you'll have to analyze everything. Okay, for example, to night and tomorrow. All right, so here you basically you put a pause between two parts of the words here. Okay, must a little weep, love, foolish me, and so fall asleep, love, loved by thee. Alright, so here what is basically the significance of putting parentheses over here? You have to analyze it, go for the literal meanings first, and then the symbolic significance of the poem. So basically this is a very beautiful poem. This is a very beautiful poem by Robert Browning, A Woman's Last Word. So basically this is his, so these are her last words over here. So this piece of poem has been taken from the link which is provided over here. So if you want to have a look on the other poems which are written by Robert Browning, so you could go and visit this link. All right, another poem, this is a very beautiful poem, again a description of the natural elements, and the elements of love, peace and affection are also there. So you could see in Meeting at Night, the grey sea and the long black land, and the yellow half moon large and low, and the startled little waves that leap in fiery ringlets from their sleep. As I gain the curve with pushing pro, and quench its speed, I the slushy sand. Then a mile of warm sea-scented beach, 3 fields of crows till a farm appears, a tap at the pan, the quick sharp scratch, and blue spot of the lighted match, and a voice less loud through its joys and fears. Then the 2 hearts beating each to each. So basically this is the poem Meeting at Night. So here you could see the description of you can say light and of sea. So here you can see the elements of nature which are present here while meeting at night. Okay, so my dear students, here you'll see the rhyme scheme. While focusing on the rhyme scheme, so you can see land, low, leap, sleep. So my dear students, this is land, and low you could see like this is A, B, okay, and then leap and sleep, this is C, okay, because we are going for, you can say, different kinds of you can say pronunciations over there. Both the, you can say, the last words of all the verses, they are different from each other. So leap and sleep, this is C and C, because eep and eep, leap and sleep. All right, and then pro and sand. So my dear students, here you could see like the rhyme scheme for the first stanza, that is A, B, C, C, and then again B, this is low and pro, and then sand, this is A. Like you could see, you can see over here, this is land, low, again this is B, because low and pro both have the same sound. Okay, and you could see, like you could notice over here, which word here has the same sound as sand. So here this is A. So the rhyme scheme for the first stanza, that is A, B, C, C, and B, A. Okay, so if we go for the analysis of the rhyme scheme in the second stanza, so here you can see beach and appears, both are different. So this is A, B. Okay, this is scratch, again different one. So this is match, this is C here. Okay, this is fears. So my dear students, this is B. Okay, and this is each cha sound here, and this is in beach as well. Fine. So here my dear students, you could see like if we say this cha sound is here in match as well, this is here in scratch as well, but here we are going for the whole word pronunciation, which is similar to beach, not with scratch or with match. So this is A again. So in the first one you could see this is A, B, C, C, B, A, and the second one the same rhyme scheme A, B, C, C, B, A. Okay, so you'll have to analyze the poem by keeping in view all elements which are present here. Okay, I'm telling you just one element, how to analyze the language of the poem. All right. Okay, the other poem which is again very much famous, and that is again a very short poem, a very beautiful poem. So you could see, so my dear students, here you could see like the difference at the level of length over here in this poem. The name of the poem is My Star. Okay, all that I know of a certain star as it can throw like the angled spar. Now a dart of red, now a dart of blue, tell my friends have said they would fancy too my star that dartles the red and the blue. Then it stops like a board, like a flower, hangs fold. They must alas themselves with the Saturn above it. What matters to me if their star is the wall? Mine has opened its soul to me, therefore I love it. So my dear students, here you could see different kinds of verses are over here. So if you just want to analyze this poem as far as the rhyme scheme is concerned, so here you could see, you could just give it a name, that is A, this is another sound, this is B. So no and throw both have the same sound at the end of the word. Again this is A, so this is spar, star and spar, this is B. Okay, red, this is, you'll give it the name C. Okay, blue, you cannot find the same pronunciation in the previous verses, so this is D. All right. Okay, so sad and red both have the same sound, so here you can give this the name C. Okay, blue and two, this is D. So again blue over here as well, so this is D again. Okay, fold, so red, sad, fold, no, it doesn't make any connection with the other words, so here you'll have to give it a name E. Above, you cannot find it as well, so this is F. Alright, so wall, fold and ball. Okay, they must alas themselves with the Saturn above it. So my dear students, here you can see like do you feel this sound at the end of any previous verse? No, this is it, so this is F again. Okay, wall, if you could see here, this is fold and this is wall. Okay, same sound, so here you can give it this name E. Mine has opened its soul to me, therefore I love it. So again here this is F. So you could see the variety of rhyme scheme over here. In first one, if we take a start here, this is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, D, E and F, E, F. Okay, so this is the rhyme scheme of the poem My Star. So you'll have to check the symbolic significance of the poem as well, because this is history of English literature class, the kind of trends which were being followed in Robert Browning's poetry, and just telling you a gist of all those concepts here. So you could see the description of beauty, the description of nature over here in his poems. Like previously when we were talking about the other poem, that is a woman lost world. So here again you can see the elements of love, affection are present here. So in Meeting at Night, that is again a romantic poem you could see, and the My Star, that is all about nature. Okay, so here if you these poems have been taken from the link that is written here on the slide. So if you want to you can say have a look on other poems which are written by Robert Browning, so you can just visit this link to get to know about those poems as well. Okay, another poet, as I was telling you before as well, like you will just focus on three poets in as far as the first half of the Victorian period is concerned. The third one is Matthew Arnold. So we'll talk about his poetry now. This is the third poet from that era. All right. Biographical information, like he was born in 1822 and he died in 1888. Okay, remembered as both a literary critic and poet. So my dear students, when we will talk about prose writers, so again we'll focus on Matthew Arnold over there as well. So he is a poet plus a literary critic as well. Okay, studied at the Rugby School. His father was headmaster of that school, and later Balliol College, Oxford University, and he got his degree in 1844. So here at the age of 20 he got that degree. Returned to Rugby as a teacher of classics. So basically he got his degree from Oxford University, and then he went to Rugby again. Okay, married in 1851, worked as a government school inspector. Grueling job, but offered travel throughout England and the continent. So my dear students, here you could see like in continent and in England have visited too many places because he was working as a government school inspector. Okay, so he got married in 1851. Okay, so my dear student, here while analyzing his points as well, so you have to keep in mind the biographical information about Matthew Arnold again. All right. School inspector's job for 35 years, developed interest in education which influenced his critical work and his poetry. So basically after visiting too many places and after writing many works, so that is a kind of influence on his work as well, because he was working as a school inspector. Fine, so that was his job. So he wrote many critical works as well after getting inspiration from his profession, and you could see the elements of his job in his works. All right, 2 volumes of poetry, Empedocles on Etna, he published in 1852, and poems with the name of this very world, poems, in 1853. Established his reputation as a poet. So my dear students, here you can see like with the publication of these 2 volumes of poetry, so he got you can say the title of the poet as well. So he made his reputation in England. In 1857 he was offered the position of professor of poetry at Oxford, which he held until 1857. So previously he was working as the professor of poetry at Oxford University, and then Arnold was the first professor of Arnold was the first professor to lecture in English at Oxford rather than in Latin. So my dear students, here you could see like instead of teaching Latin in the University of Oxford, he was the first professor who lectured in English language in Oxford, and he got this title as well. Like he was the very first professor who used to deliver his lectures in English. During this time, Arnold wrote the bulk of his most famous critical works, which reflect the main values of the Victorian era. So dear students, here you could see like his critical works, like the kind of as I told you, like when he was doing his job of school inspector, and he had to visit too many places, so that was a time when he was influenced and he was inclined towards writing his critical works as well. So basically his critical works, you could see the main values of the Victorian era in his critical works. So what was basically happening in the Victorian period at that time, so that is a clear depiction of that era. All right. Nature and themes of his poetry. My dear students, meditative and rhetorical, not expecting a response. So basically Matthew Arnold does not expect any response from the reader. So here you could see like a reader is quite passive. All right. Often wrestles with the problems of psychological isolation, reverses Donne's idea that no man is an island, suggesting instead that we mortals are all isolated to some extent. For example, to Marguerite continued. Okay, so in this work he presented him like this way. Okay, so he you can say there is a reversal of Donne's ideas as well, that no man is an island. Okay, so my dear students, most of the time, like in his poetry, he focused on the psychological problems, on isolation of human beings as well. So these are basically some of the themes of his poem. And in the first point I told you about the nature, that is meditative and rhetorical, because he did not expect any kind of response from the reader, right? And there is no involvement of the reader as such. Okay. Problem of isolation linked with the dwindling faith, questioning of the Victorian era, such as Dover Beach. So, my dear students, here you could see like in Dover Beach, you could see like he is questioning the Victorian era and the problem of isolation which he was facing. Okay, so the kind of biographical elements you could see again here in his poetry as well. Arnold struggled with his own religious doubts but wanted to establish the essential truth of Christianity. So basically this is you can say a war within his mind. Okay, so he struggled with his own religious doubts. So basically he did not, you can say, believe his religion as such, but wanted to establish the essential truth of Christianity. So this is basically whatever is in his mind according to his observation, according to experiences. So he wanted to establish this essential truth of Christianity. Okay, Arnold essays. So here, my dear students, I'll just give you a gist of his essays as well, like what was basically there in his poetry. I told you. So in Arnold's essays, so I told you he worked as a critic as well. All right, so here we'll focus on, I'll just give you a gist of his essays over here. Most influential were those concerning literary topics. In the function of criticism and the study of poetry, he called for a new epic poetry, a poetry that would address the moral needs of his readers, to animate and ennoble them. He favored a renewed religious faith and a return to classical theories of poetry. Okay, so here basically he returned to the classical theories of poetry. Okay, like the trends which we were discussing before, right? So the tone and approach of modern criticism as an art form, always respectful, gentlemanly and subtle. So my dear students, here this is just a gist of Arnold's essays. So basically what he used to do while writing his essays. So basically for the first time, like in the function of criticism and the study of poetry, he, you can say, call for a new epic poetry, that is in form of a narrative, a long poem. So here you can see like a new epic poetry. That previously when we were talking about Paradise Lost and the Fairy Queen, those were also epic poetries, fine. So here this is new epic poetry, that is in form of narrative but following the new traditions, a poetry that would address the moral needs of his readers. So basically he focused here on the morality of the readers. As I told you, Victorian age is known as the age of instability, as an age of chaos, of hustle and bustle. So basically here, according to Matthew Arnold, that was the need of time to tell your readers about, you can say, about morality, and you can say to address the moral needs of the readers as well. So he discussed all the things in his essays. Okay, and to animate and ennoble them. Okay, so here this is not like here he is involving the readers as well. Previously when we were talking about his poetry, reader doesn't have any role as such. Okay, because he does not demand any kind of response from the reader. So here in his essays he's engaging his readers as well. Okay, so he has set the tone and approach of modern criticism as an art form, always respectable, gentlemanly and subtle. So here basically he criticized poetry, everything, like in the society, maybe the Victorian period as well. He returned to the classical era as well, fine. So he called modern criticism as an art form that is always respectable, that is subtle as well, and that is gentlemanly. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of Arnold, essays and his contribution in the world of prose during the Victorian era. Okay, his later life made 2 lecture tours of the United States in 1883 and 1886, died in Liverpool in 1888. So basically this is, he went to United States twice in his life, and he delivered 2 lectures over there. Okay, and these are basically his lecture tours. All right, so he died in 1888. So my dear students, the sources for today's lecture are here in front of you. So most of the material is taken from internet, so you could visit these 3 links in order to know about more information, in order to know more about the poets in the first half of the Victorian period, in the first half of the Victorian period. So my dear students, I'll just revise a few things to you in order to make it clear that you are getting the things. Okay, today we took a start with the for early half of the Victorian period, and we focused on poetry a lot here. Although I just give you one example of Arnold's essays as well, because Matthew Arnold is famous for his criticism plus for his poetry. So I just gave you a gist in order to draw a comparison of his poetry with his essays. Fine. So my dear students, here we took a start with with the poets. I provided you the basis what we did in the last lecture when we were talking about the Victorian. Okay, my dear students, so I told you about Alfred Lord Tennyson, then Robert Browning, and then last but not the least, we talked about Matthew Arnold. Okay, my dear students, I gave you the biographical information of all the poets as well, and you can say the kind of scenario which we had during the Victorian era and the themes of their poetry. So I hope when you analyze their poetry, so the things would be very easy for you to understand. And one more thing which I told you today, that is I shared 3 poems which are written by Robert Browning with you in order to analyze what basically was the themes in his poems, plus we talked about the rhyme schemes of his poems, plus the kind of imagery and the symbolism he used in his poems. So I just wanted you to be familiar with his style. Okay, so that is all about the poets in the early Victorian period. So you could see like the kinds of themes they were following. Okay, their focus was again on nature, on the society, and plus there was an external plus internal fight, plus the psychological factors, and then Matthew Arnold, the way he talked about isolation, and there were some elements of patriotism as well in their poetry. All right, and the modern criticism, I just gave you the gist of that. Okay, so next time when we meet, so I'll tell you about the novelists of the early Victorian period. Okay, so hereby you'll have to draw a comparison of poetry with the novels as well. Okay, why novels were on the top, I gave you the reason as well, because education was very much common. So when we'll be talking about novels, so I'll just repeat the things once again for you. Okay, my dear students, as I told you, like there are certain eras where certain genres of literature, they are on the top level. As you could see, like in the Elizabethan age, drama was very much popular. Okay, so during the Romantic era, poetry was very popular, and you could see some eminent poets as well. So here in the Victorian age, you can see like this is the rise of the novel here. So the next lecture would be very much important for us as far as the Victorian age is concerned. So we'll talk about the novelists then, and then some eminent writers along with their works. So hope to see you again with a new lecture that is about the novelists of the early Victorian period. So students, I hope you are getting the things. So have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.